India is a country of mysteries. Even today, and in the 21st century, the Indian national tradition of dividing society into castes is still strong. Despite all the signs of a clear remnant of the past, each caste has its own rules, which is why uneducated people rarely move up the karmic-hierarchical ladder. Traditions are especially strong in those regions of densely populated India where there is a clear lack of education. And karma is mentioned here for a reason, because birth in one or another caste is perceived by the average Hindu as a reward or punishment for the past life. Kulinism is a special distinctive privilege of an elite caste in an area like Bengal. The Kulins believe that the tradition of special marriage ceremonies was started in time immemorial by the semi-legendary ruler Balasena, who, among other things, granted a highly privileged, noble position to the clergy. He did this in order to attract as much spiritual power as possible to his own country, for he rightly reasoned that holy men interested in material goods would gradually move under his hand. Again, it should be noted that the version presented above comes from Bengali mythology and is not scientific. Nevertheless, the fact remains that Kulinism, as a privilege of the highest noble caste of clerics, as a terrible, traumatizing social phenomenon, is alive to this day and destroys the lives of thousands of Indian women. What is Kulinism in its essence? Polygamy, where a woman is completely deprived of any rights or privileges and is in the state of an official concubine. In such an unjust marriage, the fair sex gets into it as girls, barely able to bear a child beginning of menstrual cycle. If we look back to the past of Bengal, not giving away a girl from the Brahmin caste to a cook Brahmin meant a terrible blow to the social status of the family and karmic problems in the future life. That is why families who had at least one daughter had a vested interest in giving their child to a spiritual nobleman as soon as possible. In fact, the nobles took advantage of this, regardless of their age, marrying for a fee on the part of the interested families. All this resembled, to put it mildly, a pilfering sin. When the Kulin would arrive in a town or village, after which he would go round the houses on a list, where he would take turns marrying a new bride, and after a short rest would go to the next threshold. Helpers always traveled with the Kulin to assist the holy man in moving the rich gifts, dowry from each fortunate family. Naturally, the new brides, having changed their status, were immediately taken away from the house, being consigned to the unenviable fate of giving birth to children and waiting for the death of their unloved spouse. Speaking of the death of a spouse who could marry while also being of a very respectable age, after the death of a Kulin, the wife, regardless of age, received the status of eternal widow, who, according to tradition, could neither marry or indulge in social pleasures. To put it simply, such an eternal widow was effectively thrown out of society and fell into an unspoken caste of women who faced the same problems. As a consequence, this state of affairs in past centuries had a strong impact on the gender ratio in the region, as the birth of a girl child was perceived as a misfortune rather than a joy for the family. Moreover, killing one's own child supposedly had fewer karmic consequences than not marrying a Kulin. It is not necessary to be an expert to understand what choices parents quite often made in order to get rid of problems in the future. But what if the husband was alive and well? Then the wife had an even more miserable existence, because the Kulin had every right to ignore the material needs of his wife. It was good if she turned into a physical incubator, or served to satisfy the carnal needs of the spouse. In this case, she could count on at least some attention and support from the Kulin. In most cases, however, the wives simply lived a half-impoverished existence in foreign territories, as they were deprived of the right to return to their father's home in order to make ends meet. Unclaimed wives of Kulins would go to the porch to earn their bodies for their livelihood. This is why Bengal remains one of the most criminal and sexualized regions of India today, as carnal love can be bought at almost every turn. National traditions are not always a good thing. Sometimes traditions, such as Kulinism, are rooted in a past so sordid and horrible that they disgust the man of today. But what is worse is that Kulinism is still alive and well in some parts of India, and the authorities simply turn a blind eye to it. And if somewhere in the middle of the streets of a Bengali village you see a beggar, a little girl dressed as an adult, then maybe you're looking at a happy wife of a Kulin Brahmin who has saved her family from shame and karmic consequences at such a terrible cost.